welcome everybody into the show. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. You can show your support for the show by going to mybookie.lv, entering promo code PHANTOM. That's F-A-N-T-O-M. You'll get 50% bonus cash on your first deposit. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. We've got Randall Cobb-related news. He's a Dallas Cowboy. Yay! They've replaced Cole Beasley with Randall Cobb, who at one point had 1,200 yards in a single season, made the Pro Bowl, 12 touchdowns. That was back in 2014. And since then, he's been not as good. But he's been as good as Cole Beasley has been, so, I would say other than injury issues, this is kind of a lateral move. So we'll talk about that. Also, March Madness is upon us. We've got some other things to update you on. Also, please share this video as much as you can with all of your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always. We'll get into the comments here and get your thoughts on Randall Cobb. Did you think it was a good move? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you think that this matters at all? Is Cole Beasley now officially replaced? Does this solve problems? Do you now think of the Cowboys' offense as better, improved? Let's see. Oh, there was a fire going on. Wayne says TJ Carpenter for head coach. Cody says love y'all. Diego is in the house. Chris is in the house. Rick is in the house. Corey Adam Miller is in the house. Chris says good signing. Daniel says first piece in place. Piece in place in. Okay. Corey takes off respirator. Hey guys, they put out the fire. I don't know much about this fire. If you guys could update me on the fire happenings, that would be great. Because I don't really know what's going on with the fire. You will have to educate me on said fire-related news. Carrie says, what's up, Mr. Burlsworth? I'm wearing my Brandon Burlsworth t-shirt. For those who are unaware, Brandon Burlsworth, R.I.P. May he rest peace. They made a movie about it. It wasn't a good movie, but they made a movie about him. So I would definitely Google Brandon Burlsworth if you don't. Learn his story. It's a good story. Joe says, what's up, CJ? What happened to Ari? Ari is on the road right now on his way to Austin, Texas. We've got some interesting things going on behind the scenes here at Phantom, and so hopefully we'll be able to tell you about all those at some point very, very soon, but definitely exciting news, and Ari he has got boots on the ground in Austin today. Daniel says, it's a step in the right direction. I think getting Randall Cobb is a step in the right direction. I agree with that. Step in the right direction. I'm totally fine with that sentiment. To say that it's the step in the right direction is not difficult, though, because signing any wide receiver whose name I'd recognize would be a step in the right direction. You've lost a lot of talent. And so now everybody's getting really excited. I've seen this meme in a lot of different places. This is the roster as it's projected starters week 1 for the offense. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, Randall Cobb, Michael Gallup. Those are all good names. I think everybody feels good about those names in general. Jason Witten at tight end. I don't know why he gets the start. Is that just out of habit that people are like, oh well, clearly it's going to be Jason Witten to start at tight end? I don't think it's going to be Jason Witten. I think that of every name that's on this list right here, I think that the one that is probably least likely to actually be a starter is Jason Witten. He didn't play for a whole year, and he's old. So, maybe the time off did him some good. Who knows? All I know is that I'm pretty sure that good old Buzz Lightyear, what's his name? Blake Jarwin. Blake Jarwin, I think, is going to be the opening day starting tight end for the Dallas Cowboys on their offense. Tyron Smith, Connor Williams, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, Lyle Collins. Sure. Okay. All right. So there you go. There's your projected starting lineup. It's a good lineup. It's a good lineup. Problem is that Jason Garrett's still the head coach, and I don't really know if we keep posing this question because I think Ari had said this yesterday on his show. What would make this offseason a success in your mind? And it always comes back to, well, you know, blah, 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 so-and-so's got to do this thing, and, you know, they need to sign X, Y, and Z. And basically every expert on Cowboys stuff has said the same thing. They've got too many players that are currently on their roster who they need to sign to major contracts to add any high-profile free agents. And if you think that Randall Cobb is a high-profile free agent, then you know you're probably scraping the bottom of the barrel as it is. I mean, Randall Cobb is a good wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll be solid. I think he'll have a lot of impact, especially on third down. I think they needed a third down converter, not just these big play guys. Randall Cobb fits that role very well. He fit that role very well in Green Bay, and he's going to fit that role well in Dallas as well. He's a smart player. He's good. He's solid. He's not a game changer. I don't think that we're going to see Randall Cobb just, you know, like that was the missing piece. We had all 4 other Infinity Stones, and we needed Randall Cobb's Infinity Stone to complete the gauntlet of power, or whatever that thing's called. Yeah, I don't think that that's that big of a move. It's a move, which is good. It's more than what they were doing, which was nothing. So that's good. But I think this is it. People are like, oh, well, this might be when the Cowboys start revving up in free agency. And I keep thinking to myself, rev up? I think this is it. I think they just did it. That was all the stuff that they're going to do. They might add Robert Quinn or Eric Berry, but it looks like both of those guys are taking visits to other places as well. So it's not a shoo-in that the Cowboys would get either of those 2 guys. And as we mentioned previously, they've already allocated that money to other players in their heads to begin with. So I think this is pretty much it. This is all the stuff that they're going to do in free agency. Does that satisfy you? Wayne says, I think Cobb fits this team's offensive scheme well, but do they keep Hearns? I mean, right now, I think that Hearns, Alan Hearns is in a weird spot because I don't know if he's going to be ready for the beginning of next season. So is he on the PUP list right now? I can't remember what designation they gave him. If it was NFI or if it was PUP or what it is at this point, but I don't know exactly what Alan Hearns' future is going to look like. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of injuries. John says, can Cobb rap? That is a good question. I don't think so. He does have beautiful eyes. That's the thing. I'm going to pull this clip or this picture of good old boy. Yeah, look at that. Look at how beautiful those eyes are. It's just breathtaking. Just beautiful, beautiful. You could swim in those eyes. So that you lose the ability to wrap and also fit into small holes in from Cole Beasley, and in return you get a beautiful pair of eyes. Just beautiful, just absolutely. He is way more attractive than anybody else on their team, right? Randall Cobb's the most attractive. I think he might be the most attractive wide receiver in the league. I think that's true. Look at those eyes. Just gorgeous. Anthony, they got him for a good price. James, good move. Now cut Hearns to save $5 million, then sign DN from Mimi. Are you talking about Robert Quinn? Daniel says he's all in on Blake Jarwin. I'm all in on Blake Jarwin too. I think Jarwin's going to be pretty good. They let him spread his wings a little bit in the Giants game at the end of the season, and you got to see a little bit of what Blake Jarwin can do. He's got the build of Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski. How tall is Blake Jarwin? I think he might have the same measurables as both of those guys. I remember in Kansas City when it was after his rookie season when he was hurt. He had a microfracture or something, so Travis Kelce couldn't play his first year. And I said, well, if he rebounds from the injury, he's going to be Rob Gronkowski. And people laughed at me. And I was like, well, physically they're the exact same. And if you're accurate with the ball and he catches it, like he is Rob Gronkowski. And he's not that much of a beast, but Kelsey's obviously very, very good. Blake Jarwin, what's Blake Jarwin's, what are his measurables? He's a big dude. I know that he's 6'5". Is Kelsey 6'7"? I think Kelsey's 6'7". So he's a little bit shorter than Travis Kelce. No, Kelsey's 6'6", And I do believe that Rob Gronkowski is also 6'6", but he's 6'5". 6'5", that's, good measurables. Good measurables for that guy. He's a big-bodied tight end. He's the exact same kind of athlete that you want at that position in the NFL. So I'm all in on Blake Jarwin too. I think Jarwin's going to be your starter at tight end. Randall Cobb's obviously going to play the slot. There's not really much left to do from a personnel standpoint on offense. Really now, at this point, it's adding pieces in the draft and maybe picking up another free agent on defense. But for the most part, at this point, they just have to get to the next season healthy and then play it out. They're going to go 10-6. They're going to lose in the playoffs, and then they can get rid of Jason Garrett. I am so ready to just fast forward through this season, or at least fast forward through the offseason. I mean, come on, because they're not going to do anything else. They're just not going to do anything else in free agency, just from my perspective. Let's see. Daniel says Frederick back is huge. Hopefully Connor puts some time in the gym this offseason. Ray says, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know. What was I talking about? Kerry, David Hellman says don't count Hearns out. The front office has a soft spot for him. Daniel, Jarwin does, he has some wiggle and speed. Yeah, I think Jarwin's good. I like Blake Jarwin. I think he's going to be the starting tight end. That's just my take. I don't think Jason Witten's going to be active for all the games this season. And I think that's maybe a little bit of a shock to a lot of Cowboys Nation because there's so much just expecting Jason Witten to be Pro Bowl tight end, Hall of Famer Jason Witten, and he's probably not going to be that. He might get some targets in the red zone, get some touchdowns, but generally speaking, Jason Witten is there to help other young players improve. At least that's my perception. The Cowboys did him a solid by letting him save some face, by leaving the ESPN booth and coming back to be a Cowboy. But if he gets to training camp and decides that he doesn't want to do it anymore and retires again, that wouldn't shock me. So I am much more of the opinion that he's going to be there as a face, but not as a player for the Cowboys this season, if he's a Cowboy at all this season, because he could still re-retire. I don't know what the Jason Witten situation is going to play out like in Dallas. All I know is that I think that they're probably wanting to invest in some of their younger talent at that position, and Jason Witten is there to handhold and give advice to, be a mentor to Blake Jarwin and those other players, much more so than to be a playmaker, a third down converter. He's too old for that. Rick says, I don't think we'll trade anyone unless we get into the first round. Daniel, with Witten mentoring him, damn, that could be an amazing outcome. Rick, why not move Coop to the slot? Cooper's too good on the outside. He's too fast. He's too good of an athlete to play the slot regularly. I mean, you can move him around if you're employing West Coast concepts. You can put Amari Cooper anywhere. But the fact of the matter is that your number one downfield threat is Amari Cooper, and that's going to remain that way. So he's going to play mostly on the outside. Ray says, I'm ready to see the end of Jason Garrett too. The guy's eyes, Ray Pierce, he's a football player, not a model. I mean, he could be a model. Look at that man has beautiful, beautiful, are those gray or green eyes? Either way, they're beautiful. Ray says, I'm a Witten fan, but he is past his prime. Joe says, our next move is sign D-Law. Damn it. I think they should sign DeMarcus Lawrence. They've already put him on the franchise tag. We've talked about this a lot on the show already, but I would like to, once again, reiterate that the franchise tag causes more problems than it solves. It's absolutely true. The franchise tag does nothing but create resentment and animosity between players and fans and teams. And Sean says, TJ's beard is looking a lot more balanced lately. Thank you very much. Is this the side? Which side is it? It's this side, right? This is the side that bothers everybody. It's still off, though, except the one lump. Yeah, there's this little tuft of hair. I have to shave. I have to cut it fairly regularly in that spot because it just sticks straight out off of my face. It's the same length as the hair over here. The length of the hair is the same. The way that it lays makes it look clumpy. Daniel says, if they have Witten block, means Jarwin at 6'5" could play the slot. If Dak is staying, then he needs a big target because of the lack of accuracy. Ray says Gallup should be a better wide receiver this year. With Cooper having a second year, he should be even better. Yeah, so with Michael Gallup, I have been a big fan of Michael Gallup since he got drafted, before he got drafted, really. At Colorado State, he was tremendous. Gallup, to me, I think is, if you have to go this direction and you're trying to sign all these players, but you can't come to terms with a long-term contract for Amari Cooper, which is what their plan is. But if you can't make it work, you still have Gallup there. I think Gallup is a legit #1 wide receiver option. I think that they're going to squander most of the potential of that offense from a talent perspective this season because, once again, Jason Garrett's the coach. Terry says, love the Cobb sign. 1 year, prove it. Nothing to lose but a roster spot. Witten will still get drafted in 12-man fantasy leagues. He will. You're absolutely right about that, Terry. There's no question. And I'm not trying to downgrade or degrade Jason Witten's legacy. That's not the issue here. The issue here is that he's old and he hasn't been playing for a year. And I don't think that they would have signed him with all of these roster incentives to like make the squad and be active on game day. If you look at those incentives in his contract, that proves, at least to some extent, that the Cowboys don't even believe he's going to play in all the games. Why else would they create those incentives that way? The only reason that they would do that is if they believe that there's a chance that he won't reach those incentives. And if the incentives are being on the roster, that lends me to believe that he's definitely not going to be a starter. If he has incentives to just make the active day roster, the game day roster, if that's an incentive for you, you're probably not considered to be a go-to option for the offense. That's all I'm saying. Javian says, play with Hearns in the slot. He didn't get enough game planning. Look, once again, we don't know how Allen Hearns is going to recover. That was a really bad injury. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing Hearns continue to improve and get better and get back in the league. I think everybody's rooting for him. I'm just saying that's an injury that takes a long time to recover from. There were talks of him never playing football again. That's how bad that injury was. So the idea that he's going to just come back and be immediately ready to go and not miss a beat at the beginning of this coming season, I think is a little bit naive. I would anticipate that if he is on the roster, that he's going to miss at least the first month of the season. That would be my anticipation, if he's on the team. Wayne says, look for Cobb in the slot. Agree with that. Daniel, we just need a big fucking trade to upgrade in the draft. Who would you trade? Would you trade DeMarcus Lawrence? Because I think you could get into the first round for sure by trading DeMarcus Lawrence. But you have to have somebody who's got the salary cap space and is also agreeing to restructure his contract to the terms that he likes. Which, I don't know how many teams out there could do that at this point. But I do know that there are a lot of them that would like DeMarcus Lawrence. I just don't know who that would be at this point. They'd have to go out and actively search for another team to trade with them to get back up into the first round if they decided to go that direction, which I'm not even really advocating that they go that direction, but other than that, who else are you going to trade that actually helps your situation? Who else could you trade that you're willing to give up that would get you into the first round other than DeMarcus Lawrence? Who would you trade? Who could you possibly trade to get into the first round? Oh, there it is, Daniel. There it is. I just saw that comment. Trade Dak. Trade Dak. Yeah. I'm with you, Daniel. Let's do it. Let's get crazy. Trade Dak Prescott. Trade Dak Prescott. Bradley's saying Dak. Dak. Everybody's saying trade Dak. Oh boy. Ray says, I kind of know what he went through and is going through. I had a compounded dislocation of my right ankle and shattered subtalar joint in my foot. He won't be the same this year. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I've never had that bad of a broken bone. I've had a 3rd-degree high ankle sprain before, and I do remember my doctor telling me that he's like it would have been better if you just broken it. So sometimes a sprain can be worse than a break, but in his case, it was a really bad break. I don't think he's going to be the same. But as somebody else mentioned earlier, the front office for the Cowboys has a soft spot for Allen Hurns. And look, you don't want to abandon a player who had that kind of a bad injury. It just looks bad. It feels icky, I think, to do it that way. So I think they'll probably hang on to Allen Hurns. I just don't know if he's going to be ready to go day one for the season. I mean, he's going to have to get into playing shape and then back into game shape and all that stuff. It takes a long time to recover from. So, I mean, we'll see on Allen Hurns. We'll see on Allen Hurns. Yeah, everybody, Dak, trade Dak. Except for Ray. Ray saying trade D-Law. Daniel saying trade Dak. Corey saying trade Dak. Bradley saying trade Dak. Wayne saying laugh my ass off at Dak. James Chuck Johnson, Dak. Kerry says trade Dak, you must be crazy. Marcus says, what other team would give Dak $100 million plus? That's a good question, Marcus. Who else would pay Dak Prescott $100 million? Who would do that? Who? The Dolphins? I mean, they brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick on a one-year deal, so it's probably not the Bucks? The Buccaneers. What about the Buccaneers? Would they do it? Would they pay Dak Prescott $100 million? I bet they would. Who else? The Redskins. Oh, you could offload Dak Prescott on the Redskins. Because here's the thing. If you're trading with the Redskins, you know that whatever you get in return is going to work out better for you than what you give to the Redskins. The Redskins are like a black hole at this point. Anything that gets thrown into it just gets sucked into oblivion. It doesn't matter who it is. If you want to ruin someone's career, if you want to ruin someone's life, trade him to Washington. Seriously, they're the new Browns, aren't they? I mean, you can't say they're the new Browns because the Browns are still technically the Browns. We'll have to wait and see on this year. The Redskins are kind of their own dysfunctional mess, because it's not that they're just they're not pitiful, because the Browns are pitiful. I would say that the Redskins are grossly incompetent. They're just they're a rich kid who never learned how to do anything, has no skills, but enormous amounts of money. So that's the Redskins. If you really wanted to ruin Dak Prescott's life, if you're okay, all right, here's my negotiating tactic. If I'm Jerry Jones, you take $18 million a year, or I'm trading you to Washington. And he's like, okay, all right, I'll take $18 million. Sean says, I know people would hate it, but Zeke is the best value right now of anyone. Yeah, well, that's true. I do think that you could offload Zeke. You could offload Zeke and get a fairly good return at this point because he's really healthy. And, the running back position, depending on, if you traded him to Minnesota would be a good place to trade him. Who else could you potentially trade Zeke Elliott and get a big return? I mean, Washington. Where else? You think Oakland, maybe? You want to trade him to Oakland? Oakland's willing to deal. They're willing to deal. So I would say Oakland. You could trade Zeke Elliott to Oakland. Wait, does Oakland have... Yeah, Oakland's got first-round picks. Let's see, what else? Ray says, I could see the bottom of my foot just looking down. Oh, yikes. That's not good. When you broke your foot. Chris says, y'all are crazy. Trade Dak. Shit would be our QB. Yeah, right. Shit would be your QB. And then you'd have a first-round pick, and then you'd be able to just go all in on tanking this season, and then get Trevor Lawrence in the draft next year. That's how that would work. I think that's actually a pretty good strategy if you went with tanking. And I know guys like Jeff Kavanaugh, who you've seen here on Phantom, and have listened to on 105.3 The Fan. He is a big fan of tanking. I think that that's one way to go with this. They're not going to do that, but they could. And I think it would work out pretty well for them if they did do that. Because at this point, if you've got everybody to buy in on tanking for a season, just one season, just tank. To get Trevor Lawrence, then you turn into potentially you would turn into like the Chiefs. You know, you would have that caliber of personnel if you could tank to get Trevor Lawrence. Because Trevor Lawrence is terrific. So is Tua Tagovailoa. Tua's stock fell quite a bit after the national championship game, but he's still, it's 1A and 1B. This is like Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III in the draft a few years ago. I don't see how you could screw that up. Daniel says, I think we could, Joe, at least load up on some more twos. Ginny says, I got lost. Did you? Chris says, what's Burlsworth? Brandon Burlsworth? Google Brandon Burlsworth, Chris, and you tell me. They made a movie about Brandon Burlsworth. You should know, Chris. By the way, how them Longhorns doing? You big baseball fan? You liking the early goings on of the baseball season? That's right. Woo pig suey. Let's see here. Daniel says Miami. Nobody. Oh, you guys talking about who would pay? Denver would pay him $100 million? I don't think Dak Prescott's tall enough for John Elway. Ray, D-Law will set out most of the season. He will get surgery right before the season on his torn labrum. Chris, John Elway would trade for Dak. Daniel says, bring him, TJ. That's why I've been saying it. Denver, Jets, Cardinals. Bradley saying, LOL, TJ at the Deadskins. They're terrible. The Redskins are just freaking awful. Ray says, speaking of dysfunctional, what about the Giants? Well, the Giants already have Saquon Barkley, so they wouldn't want Zeke Elliott. Are you talking about Dak Prescott? Who would take? You think the Giants would take a runner on Dak Prescott? I mean, what's his face up there? Gosh, what's that guy's name? The GM of the Giants. It's Dave Gettleman. Yeah, Dave Gettleman. Oh God, Gettleman. Gettleman is he is obsessed with Eli Manning, and they shipped Odell Beckham Jr. to the Browns to protect Eli Manning. It's crazy how married some of these franchises, like the Giants, are to Eli Manning, and the Steelers are to Ben Roethlisberger, over the very talented, much more talented, to be totally honest with you, receivers or skill position players as opposed to their quarterback. They just freaking love their quarterbacks. Well, I mean, they won a Super Bowl. Yeah, but who would pick Eli Manning over Odell Beckham Jr.? Who would pick Ben Roethlisberger over both Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown? Crazy people. That's who. Rick says we must save the Giants GM at all costs. Dave Gettleman. He is a character. Aldo, Cobb should be good in Dallas. So much for Cole leaving. He will be sad he didn't stay. And then when the snow hits the floor and his ass gets cold. Yeah, I mean, being a Bill is not fun. I don't think anybody has ever said, man, you know what, I really enjoyed playing for the Bills. Except for maybe like Bruce Irvin. Maybe even Jim Kelly acknowledges that he didn't like Buffalo. He refused to play for Buffalo for a little while. He was just like, I'm not going to Buffalo. It's terrible. I hate it. Who else? Joe Ferguson, O.J. Simpson. Talking about great Bills. How awful is it if the greatest player in your franchise's history is O.J. Simpson? Sucks to be a Bill. Robert says, we will be better, need to sign Barry. Okay, so you guys want to talk about Eric Berry for a second? I love Eric Berry as an individual. I think he's one of the most tremendous human beings in the league. He's fantastic, and he's got a tremendous amount of hardworking attitude, humility. He is very gracious anytime that he talks about those things. He's not a flowery, showy player or anything like that. He just knocks the shit out of people, and has been one of the best safeties in the league the last 6 or 7 years. And the cancer diagnosis and beating cancer and coming back and playing at a Pro Bowl level after cancer. All of those things are really, really impressive about Eric Berry. The weird thing here with Eric Berry is that he's got a growth on the end of his heel. That's why I call him Falcon Foot Berry. So he's got this bone spur that's sticking out of his foot that he's had his whole life. And unfortunately having surgery on it would mean that he's going to miss a lot of time. So Eric Berry is basically just saying, look, I'm not going to, I'm not going to do it. So you've got all this stuff going on with Eric Berry, where you're like high risk, high reward, injury situation. Can he still play? Is this going to be a problem for him? All those kinds of things with Eric Berry. And yeah, I get it. It would be a high risk, high reward situation. But the reward in that situation, I mean, I talk on these chats all the time when we are reading comments, and I bring up Antonio Brown as like, I don't want Antonio Brown. He's a me first type player. I hate players like that. And, I don't think it matters that much, but I will say this. If you're looking for the right type of personality for your locker room, Eric Berry's like, I mean, he's basically perfect in that respect. I don't know if you could find a player who's going to behave the way that you want a player to behave better than Eric Berry. That's just my take on Eric Berry, but I still believe that he's good. I mean, I don't know anybody who could stay in the kind of shape he stayed in through chemotherapy, and I've never seen Eric Berry not look incredible physically. So I think that his shape, he's somebody who takes a lot of care of his body. So I'm not as leery of the injury issues as some other people are, but I definitely think that Eric Berry's going to cost you something. Do I think he's truly healthy? I don't know. I would say that the chances of him being ready for the season are higher than Allen Hurns. I would say that the chances of him being healthy the entire year is higher than Earl Thomas. Based off of the types of injuries that they were dealing with. I don't think that Earl Thomas is less of a risk than Eric Berry is. And if we're talking about who the best safety, Earl Thomas and Eric Berry are both tremendous safeties. If you want to say Earl Thomas is better than Eric Berry, that's fine. I just think that it's a debate, certainly. And given the fact that Eric Berry has been as good as he's been when healthy, go out and get that dude. He's going to make your secondary better if he's healthy. That's almost a guarantee. Daniel says, Sue would be all right to sign as well. Him and Malik Collins side by side would blow up that middle. Yeah, unless Sue isn't on the field, and he wasn't on the field like half the plays defensively for the Rams last season. So that's not great. Chris says, I've heard good things about Buffalo from the Longhorns who played there. Aldo, Berry, if he's at a team-friendly deal, but I really like Woods, and he's young, he will get better when the picks start coming. Sean, does Berry have to wear wear special shoes for his foot talon? I don't think he does. I think he just wears normal shoes. I don't even think that he knew he had it until... It's never been a problem for him in the past. So now that all of a sudden it became a problem, teams are all of a sudden weary of it. And I get that, but... He'll be ready for the season before Tank will. That's a good point, Sean. I think you're right about that. Aldo, glad he didn't overpay for that dude. He will be hurt again. Earl Thomas, yeah. Chris, Hell T. Sue. Rick, I said that in a group and was called a fucking moron talking about Berry and Thomas being about the same risk with signing to team. Who said you were a moron for that? I don't understand that thinking. Why do people think Earl Thomas's injury is less of an issue than Eric Berry's injury? That doesn't make any sense to me. I would have to hear their rationale, but I think you're right on that, Rick, obviously, because you agree with me. Aldo, sorry I hate Sue. He hurt our player before, and we don't need that crap on our field. Yeah, sometimes you got to have a little bit of a dirty streak. Ndamukong Suh, really dirty player. Albert Haynesworth was a dirty player too. Didn't mean he wasn't good. But he was dirty. Wasn't that also Albert Haynesworth? Wasn't that also against the Cowboys? Didn't he try to step on a dude's head? Albert Haynesworth? I think that was a Cowboy. I can't remember if it was or not though. Chris says, y'all sleep on Earl Thomas, but that guy busted his ass to get healthy and will prove everyone wrong. I don't, like I said, this is not to diminish Earl Thomas. I just don't think that his injury is less of a risk than Eric Berry's injury. or the likelihood that he will get hurt again is less than Eric Berry's likelihood he'll get hurt again. I don't see how people are making that correlation, especially not with something like injuries, which are impossible to predict. Rick, Romanowski was dirty as fuck. Yeah, he was. Bill Romanowski was dirty. Pretty much all those defensive guys were really dirty players. Nobody ever talks about it. Okay, so Aldo says, yes, he hurt Giroud, our offensive lineman. You talking about Albert Hainsworth, or are you talking about Ndamukong Suh? Hainsworth, yeah. Hainsworth stepped on Andre Giroud's face. Yeah, so that's what I thought. I thought it was Albert Haynes. I thought that was a Cowboy, but I couldn't remember. Okay, so, Chris says Burfict is the dirtiest player in the NFL and he should be banned for life. Of course, he ends up in Oakland, right, with the Raiders. Yes, Aldo stepped on his head and cut his forehead. I remember that. That was when he was still a Titan. That was before he was a Redskin. Yeah, Albert Hainsworth's a dirty player. And yeah, Ndamukong Suh, dirty player. Vontaze Burfict, dirty players. You think that it's easy to play defense and get into that mindset just like snapping your fingers? No. You have got to be a really violent person. Some guys can flip that switch. You know, I've heard Brian Urlacher was really good at flipping that switch. I've heard Ray Lewis was really good at flipping that switch. Terrell Suggs was really good at flipping that switch. Although Suggs, you could make an argument also kind of just that way all the time. But definitely thinking about this in those terms. Sometimes those dudes are just mean dudes. And there are a lot of those guys around the league. A lot. Because you have to have somebody who's a little crazy to play defense. You have to enjoy causing pain to other people to be really good at that level of defense. Rick says, has Suggs signed with anyone yet? He has not, although I believe he may end up in Arizona. Nope. He has signed with Arizona. Yeah, no, he has signed with Arizona. Okay, I didn't know that was confirmed, but it looks like it has been confirmed. He has signed with the Arizona Cardinals. So there you go. Terrell Suggs is an Arizona Cardinal. Chris says Burfict signed with Oakland. Ginny says someone on Twitter saying we're going to be disappointed when we see Cobb without Rodgers. I get it, but don't put a lot of stock in it. Yeah, well, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to make anybody look better, but Cobb still has to catch the ball. And if you look at most of the routes they were throwing to Cobb on, they were short to intermediate routes, a lot of yak. So, you know, that's kind of what they want to use him for in Dallas, and those throws are easier to make. If you're making short throws across the middle, into the flat, stuff where, you know, wheel routes, arrow outs, you know, those kinds of things, cut and runs, you know, those are the kinds of routes that Cobb's going to run for the most part. That and skinny post. Other than that, Cobb's not going to, you're not going to see Cobb in a foot race with a defensive back on the outside. That's just not how it works. What about Quinn? Quinn hasn't signed with anybody, or signed. He hasn't been traded to any team yet, but the Cowboys are obviously in consideration. I think the Saints are also in consideration for Robert Quinn as well. Chris says, there's more people in this chat than there were at the Texas basketball game last night. Well, it is the NIT. Also, one of my pet peeves, I've heard this so much, I hear it so much every year, don't call the NIT tournament. Because if you call it the NIT tournament, you need to be slapped. Because the T in NIT stands for tournament. So you can't say the NIT, the National Invitational Tournament. That doesn't make any sense. Of course, NASCAR doesn't make any sense either. What is that? The National Association of, National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing. Car and auto mean the same thing. I don't understand why you had to go NASCAR. Like, why is the auto? Stock car auto racing. Car and auto mean the same thing. Aldo, Cobb will be a better version of Cole. Sean, I loved Roy Williams in his first few years blowing everyone up, and then came the horse collar rule. Yeah. Rick, the M in ATM stands for machine, and people still call it an ATM machine. Yeah, I don't understand why people do that. Daniel, we don't see what goes on at the bottom of that pile. Everyone who has played knows a lot of shit goes on at the bottom of that pile. Sue is dirty, but just how he plays. It's been a while since he's done any of that. That's true. He hasn't been that dirty recently. Aldo, Woods will step up at safety this year. Watch and see. Jenny, thanks for telling me what NIT stood for. LOL. You're welcome. Rodney, what do you think it will take to get Quinn? I have heard from folks that Taco would be in the trade. Well, if you could unload Taco Charlton. If you could unload Taco, that would be great. So yeah, unload Taco. Agree to pay Robert Quinn's salary. I think that's probably what the salary split. Who's responsible for the money on his deal? That's probably some of it. But you know, the Dolphins clearly want to trade Robert Quinn. Quinn has to approve of it, which is why it was fairly unprecedented to see a player who's on another team go to another team's facility to interview for a job there, like Robert Quinn did yesterday. But that's the situation they're in, and Quinn has to approve all that stuff. So, you know, Quinn's probably still got a couple of really good years left in him. And I think that if they brought him in, it would be a really good thing for that defense. But, you know, they're going to have to get there's a lot of stuff that has to work out for them right now in terms of what exactly the moving pieces are with the salary cap in order to get Robert Quinn and Derek Berry. There's a long wish list of players in free agency that the Cowboys want and feel like could make their team better. And everybody is so thirsty for him right now because they know that Jason Garrett's the coach and they didn't get what they wanted in firing Jason Garrett and getting him out the door so that they could revamp the team from a philosophy standpoint. And so since that's not happening, I think everybody's grasping at every single free agent name that they know and they think is a good player and they think that could make the Cowboys better because they know that the philosophy will be the same. And with this philosophy, they're going to need a significantly more talented roster to get to the Super Bowl. Rick says, I think we signed Quinn. Rumors are he's going to be a backup for Saints and we will make him a starter. Sean, anyone remember Andre Waters from the Eagles? There was a dirty piece of shit player. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, the Eagles have a lot of those. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for me. I want to thank everybody for watching the show. As always, enjoy March Madness. We'll be talking a lot about the games once the games start, obviously. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Of course, we'll have our updates. I did a March Madness video update preview, which will be... We'll be publishing later on today on Phantom, so make sure you stick around for that. I'm TJ Carpenter. This has been the TJ Carpenter Show. I want to thank everybody for watching as always. And don't forget, show your support for this show by going to mybookie.lv, enter promo code PHANTOM, and you will get 50% bonus cash on your first deposit. Please, please, please do that. And remember, share this video with your friends. We'd love shares. Shares are our favorite thing. If I see you sharing this video, you are my friend. Thank you so much for doing that, guys. All the regulars out there, thank you very much for being a part of the show. As always, you make this show a lot better. If it was just me talking to myself with no one to listen, that'd be pretty sad. And a commentary on just how far down into a deep, depressing, dark hole I fall. Thank you guys once again for watching the show. mybookie.lv, promo code PHANTOM. Later, y'all.